Tēnā koutou katoa, kia ora everybody. Che Wilson here from Te Pai Pai Waho, connecting to you through a number of different platforms, and it looks like my internet's playing up a little bit. So if it breaks up and down, once we've finished this live, you'll then be able to watch it properly. But Kati, we are talking about Puanga. It's Puanga season, so I'm going to get straight into things. And where are we? Here we go. So last week we talked about Te Whare o Puanga, and I'll cover that briefly again. And this week we're going to talk about the Fatah of Maru. And then the next 2 weeks we'll then talk about the New Year and then the Puanga period generally. So 4 different kōrero over 4. Within those 4 different kaupapa, 2 will be focused in on Te Maru o Te Tau and the finishing of the current year, the old year, and then 2 sessions which will then focus in on the new year. And we will then look at the different kōrero associated with those things. So last week we talked about Maru Aonui, the house that's created when Te Waka Orangi dives, and as it gets vertical, it creates this house where the old people say, ko Maru Aonui te whare, ko Rarotonga te papa, ko Puanga te tupuna. And that's all got to do with weather prediction, and in particular talking about rain and or storm events we may get. And I also showed last week an image of the pinky purple skies at night and skies in the morning. That tuhi, that phenomena, is also called Maru Aonui, which is linked to both the stars and then the weather and how it will impact on us or not in the following year. This week, we will be talking about Te Whata Maru, where you'll see it written as Te Whata Maru. You'll also see it written as Te Whata Nā Maru. And in the Waiata, well-known Waiata sung in Whanganui, especially up in the mountain, Kātia Noa, it talks about Koiri no ia ki Te Whata Nā Maru. And the whata, or the platform of Maru, is a place in the stars where the mate are suspended or placed upon as they wait to then send down to Te Tatau o Te Pō and then onto the kupinga of Taramainuku. And we'll talk more about that later. But the Whata Nā Maru is that place where you send your mate. And in the past, many of us have actually done joint processes where you send the mate, call out the names, and then welcome in the new year. And it's going to take some time to transition, but as we've done our research, there's been a kāhui of Puanga for Taranaki and Whanganui. And as we've done our research, we started to actually find more kōrero that actually it's at this time that we send the mate in the evening to the pō, to the Whata of Maru, which makes sense. You send them to the pō, in the pō. And then the transition to become stars happens in the new year. But other than that, the actual tangi ki ngā mate happens right now. And in our case, we would do it in the big moon. And what do I see tonight? Takiro. So yeah, it's the is it Takiro or Oike? One of them. It's this time that you would traditionally send or tuku, which is why it's called a hautuku. And ka tukuna e nā kupu I te tongo te rā as the sun sets. you send those words with the sun, and then as the sun has set, you'll then see the stars and the Fatah reveal itself. And I think, yes, so this is what sunset looked like tonight on the 6th of June. Oh, happy birthday, Rodney. On the 6th of June, and you'll see the area that I've shaded where it's got Puanga, Tautoru, and Putara, Putara being the star of Maru. And last week I focused in with Takurua as well, but this week I'm just looking at the Fatah, and I'll show you what that looks like in more detail. And so this is what it looks like in detail. Is the Fatah it's a platform, just like the platforms that we would suspend our mate on in the past and wait for the kiko to fall off, for nature to do its process, and then we'd clean the bones and then take them to a special place. And there's a Fatah in the sky where we do this, not Lucy in the sky, but the Fatah in the sky just after sunsets. If I go back again, so there you can see the sun just setting, and this is at 5:54 tonight. So this is from the map of the stars as the sun's setting, and that's a clearer vision of it. And then I think the most important thing to share here is that the Fatah of Maru is where the kāhui Maru take our mate to the pō. And the kāhui Maru is a term often used by West Coast tribes in many waiatatangi, where they will invoke the atua maru, and at night time you invoke the atua maru. He then is in the domain of both death and war. In the morning, when you invoke maru, you're talking about the atua of food, which is like the famous karakia that Uncle Ruka Broughton composed, o te wao o te ngākina, o te waitai o te wai Māori, where he talks about the different foods of tāne, of rongo, of tangaroa, and of maru. But in this case, it's at night time, and so nighttime, the maru reference is to the mate, to those that have passed on, and the kāhui maru in the pō. Another key point to note is that the Fatah nā maru and that process of placing them on through the hautuku, and then the next steps, as I mentioned briefly earlier, ka tuku ki te tatau o te pō, they then go to mirutai, or miru, and the sentinels of her house, te whare, her house is te tatau o te pō, and the sentinels of that house are rua kumea, rua toia, and kaiponu kino. And so those names describe what's happening there. And then from there, they go to the kupenga of Taramainuku, ki te moana tōrino. And so they're then like a vortex sucked up and wait in the kupenga. And then you get eloquent or beautiful references of poetry in some of our poi. And one of them is, ki te tini o Taramainuku, ki te tini o Taramakau. And Taramakau is a play on words. It's a beautiful play on words, where those have gone to kupenga, the many, the multitude that have gone to the net of Taramainuku, where they are then part of Taramakau. And so Taramakau being your mako, your loved ones. And so it's a stunning reference to our mate that have passed. Katiake, that's the end of number 2. Ana, yes, that's right, taipa, rua kumea, rua toia, kaiponu kino. And you'll find tribes, even like Ngāi Tahu, they'll talk about tahu kumea and tahu toia, and tahu, a couple of other tahus. The imagery is the same. And when we think about that, they're taking them to different places. or to the same place, but they might have a subtle difference, and they change that because their emphasis is tahu. Our emphasis as Rua Tipua and Rua Taranaki is their Rua. But it also has a nice connect to the great abyss where the sun sets. So kāti ake te iwi, as the sun sets, we send our loved ones to the pō to wait, where next month they will transition, their wairua will fly like manu to Kauhau te rangi, where they will then become whetu riki and join the stars on the instruction of Atutahi, tēnā koutou, rire hau, pai mārire.